What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Jumping on here to recap Steelers' huge Sunday Night Football victory over the New York Jets. 37-15 final score. It was a wild one. Lots to talk about through this one. A lot of positives, too. I thought the Steelers played really well, especially as the game wore on, particularly in the second half. But I know a lot of you guys are probably feeling it just like I am this morning, a little tired, but it's okay. We'll get through it. It's always good to wake up on a lack of sleep after a Steelers win. It makes it a little bit more bearable for sure. So got a lot of things that I kind of want to hit on, some pros, cons, just kind of talk through the game that was. Just before I get started, please make sure that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment. All that stuff is greatly appreciated on my end. But I thought really, like I said, a little bit of a slow start for the Steelers. That's kind of been characteristic of this team. Getting off to slow starts really throughout the season so far, just on offense. I think it was definitely understandable for the offense to get off to a little bit of a slow start in this one, just because they had a quarterback that hadn't really played in quite a while, to be honest with you. Very limited action in the preseason for Russ. So it was expected that he was going to be a little rusty out of the gate. But I thought really after the first, 3 or 4 drives or so, I thought he played really solid. Kind of want to get into, his performance in a vacuum, but just in general, I thought the offense played extremely well. There were just a number of different things that I was very, very happy with. As the weekend wore on, I was kind of starting to talk myself into this being a much more manageable game, despite them not being favorites, even though they were at home. Just because I knew the Jets were going to be, really desperate coming in this one, just because of, all the things that has transpired with them, the head coaching change, trade for Devontae Adams, they're 2-4, kind of season on the ropes. But I thought the Steelers really answered the bell and really wore them out in the second half of the game. The magic number that I was kind of shooting for with the ground game was 150 yards. Like that's pretty much, I think, what Buffalo had last week. We talked about some of the different things that the Bills were able to do for them against them. The Jets came into this one ranked 27th in rushing success rate. So this needed to be a good rushing game for the Steelers. Weren't overly like efficient like throughout the entire game running this one. Like if you just look at like the overall like success rates, the Steelers weren't down by down extremely successful. They just had a bunch of explosive plays, and obviously when you get turnovers and short fields, that stuff helps too. But I thought over the course of the game in the second half, they were much better about running the rock, controlling the line of scrimmage, things like that. I thought the offensive line really settled down. I thought Najee really settled down. I thought he left some yards on the table in the first quarter, second quarter. But as the game wore on, he played just better and better, got Jalen Warren a little bit more back in the mix. But I thought the biggest change, I think, last night, and was one that clearly they were trying to place an emphasis on, was just the play action passing game. I mean, you just look at some of the numbers from Russ, just off the play action passing game. This was something I wrote about like last week, and I know I talked about it in the video that we did on Russ, but this is like the area in which I thought he gave him an advantage over Fields just because of multiple different reasons. He's just more comfortable being under center. It's actually kind of funny. Like you look at like next gen stats, he aligned under center last night on 41 of his 66 snaps. It was his highest snap rate under center in a game since 2016. So it's been a while since he's played like this drastic of a type of ball, but the results were excellent. Russ on play action last night, he was 10 of 13, 161 yards and a touchdown, no picks, just one sack on the afternoon. So I thought that the play action passing game was extremely well designed. They popped a bunch of guys wide open, which was really nice to see. I thought the playmakers in general had their best game from a collective standpoint. George Pickens, it is what it is. Like we've talked, I feel like everybody's talked like ad nauseum just over his kind of performance through the first portion of the season, whatever. It's been just up and down. It's been a roller coaster, to be honest with you. But I thought like last night was the most engaged that I have seen him in a very, very long time. For whatever reason, maybe it was the matchup, getting to go up against Sauce, maybe it's prime time, whatever. But I thought he was absolutely fantastic last night. Just nothing short of that. Made multiple difficult contested catches. I mean, the first deep ball that he caught in the second quarter that kind of got the Steelers offense going. I mean, he's pinned up against the sideline. He's getting held. I don't think there was actually a flag, but he had one arm kind of pinned by the defender. he makes an incredible like one hand grab on an underthrown deep ball from Russ down the sideline. I mean, I really thought that that was kind of a spark for them. They had previously been struggling. And then too, like he caught another one down the right sideline that was also a little bit underthrown, makes a spectacular grab. Those type of contested catches. I mean, I tweeted out the numbers last week. Just like, he's had some drops this season. His highest drop rate of his like football career. And then like he hasn't been converting contested catches lately either. And I thought he did both of those things really well. Got into the end zone, and then more than anything else, like the thing that surprised me the most is like I think George has always had great hands. I just think that there's been some lapses this season for whatever reason. George was blocking last night. I couldn't believe it. He's helped spring. I know the Freiermuth on a yards after catch play, and then also like a play late in the third quarter, like he threw a block for Jalen Warren like after the catch. So, and I think there was at least one run where I noticed him on the front side of a run and actually showing some effort in the blocking game too. So kudos, all that stuff. I mean, when 14 is locked in, this offense is a lot more formidable, a lot more dynamic. So I just wanted to highlight that really off the rip. But I thought the playmakers in general, Calvin Austin had the rough drop early in the game, wasn't too much of a factor. And this one did have the explosive play off the crosser, off play action in the fourth quarter to kind of put this game away. Freiermuth made a really nice play with the one-handed grab down the right sideline. There were just a lot of different contributions. I thought, like I already mentioned, like Najee was running really hard in the second quarter. I thought Jalen Warren looked the best that he has so far this season. Just a couple plays that really stuck out from Warren's perspective. That throw to Freiermuth down the right sideline. It's a really cool design. They're running a mirrored concept, and it's just kind of a pick a side type of thing. But really, it's a stacked formation. They're trying to get a pick to kind of wheel Freiermuth down up the sideline, and it works. He gets the defender on his back. Russ kind of lobs the ball over him, makes the one-handed grab. But that play doesn't happen if Warren doesn't step up in the pocket and stonewall the defender and pass pro to give Russ just enough time to lob that thing up and over. So, I mean, Jalen last night, the other key play, I thought it was honestly the play of the game for me. It's a one-score game. I think it was like 23-15 late in the third quarter. The Jets had just got that field goal block. It's 3rd and 8. Broderick gets beat inside off a spin move from Will McDonald. And then, Russ kind of sidesteps a little bit to his right, throws a check down to Jalen, and Jalen puts a spin cycle on 2 different defenders, gets up the field, gets a first down. I mean, it's a huge swing that isn't necessarily anything that's going to stick out in the box score. People probably won't remember it in February after the season's over, but like those type of moments where you're potentially kicking the ball back to a Hall of Fame quarterback, where he was kind of starting to move the ball again a little bit. I just thought it was a great play in general. I thought, like I said, I thought the offensive line settled down. The tackles in particular weren't great yesterday. I thought Dan Moore was okay at times. I know he had some rough moments in the first half, I thought. Settled in as the game wore on. Same with Ryan McCollum. Some first half struggles, got the holding penalty. But I thought in the second half, he started to play a little bit better. I think the only player that I noticed that was consistently kind of getting beat was Broderick Jones. It's really been a theme of the season. I mean, we don't really need to rehash it. It's all the same stuff that we've talked about really throughout. I think the next gen stats had Will McDonald, the guy who he was going up against with a career high 7 pressures, had the sack. He got beat on the outside track for the sack. There were multiple like quick losses that kind of forced Russ to evade pressure in the pocket. It just is what it is. I mean, he needs to play better. We can talk about the reasons why maybe he's not playing as well as they need him to. But things obviously have not been great through the first 6-7 weeks of the season. But in terms of Russ, man, like I said, I thought he played really solid. Like as the game kind of wore on, you could see him getting a little bit more comfortable. I think the big thing that I was excited about was just executing the offense. Like this is one of the reasons why I thought that the Steelers kind of went away from Justin and went to Russ, was just I thought there were some plays left on the table over the past couple of weeks, particularly in the play action passing game. And that's kind of Russ's thing. Like that's what he does really well. It's something he's really excelled at throughout of his career. It's something I would really like for them to lean into with him under center. You just look at the average depth of target, nothing too crazy, but 8.1 A dot, but the play action numbers were skyrocketed. He pushed the ball down the field vertically. He avoided negative plays, only took 1 sack in this one. I know that was something that I was particularly worried about just because, the Jets came into this one. They were top 5 in sacks, top 5 or 6, I think, in pressure rate as well. Only one negative play. Like that's been an issue for Russ over the course of his career. Wasn't an issue last night. I thought that he got the ball out on time and found open receivers. And like I said, the receivers made some plays for him, but that's why those guys get paid too. I mean, George Pickens, Pat Fryermuth, those guys made awesome plays for him. Maybe on some balls that weren't necessarily perfect throws, but they're the number 1 and 2 guys on the offense. Like that's what they're supposed to do. I was happy with that aspect of it. Just in terms of, I wouldn't really say like any like negatives, more than just like I'm just curious about what it's going to look like over the course of the season. I am somewhat concerned about like his arm and just like his general mobility. There were definitely times where he would make some quick twitch movements in the pocket last night. Like I said, he avoided sacks, which is a good thing. There were definitely a couple times where like he went to hitch up or kind of take off, and you could see that he just wasn't as quick, even as like I was seeing last year in Denver. Something I noted about his last season in Denver was that I thought that he looked more mobile last year than he did the year or two prior. He credited that, I think, to like him being a little bit lighter. But I mean, again, he's coming back from a soft tissue injury, the calf. He's another year older. Just curious about what that's going to look like. And then, there were some underthrows in terms of the deep balls were underthrown, and he had some balls like down him. Like there were a lot of like low throws when he was trying to get velocity, and I felt like he wasn't getting the spin rate that he was wanting on it, or wasn't getting enough juice on it, the way that he's like typically accustomed to. But I thought overall, like I said, it was a really solid performance. He found the end zone 3 times. They scored 37 points. So it was definitely a solid debut for him. I'm interested to see, like I said, the offense continue to progress. But I also want to give some flowers to Arthur Smith. I thought that he called a really good game, aside from like just his propensity to dial up the second long runs, especially early in games. Really would wish he'd get away from some of that stuff. And it's always like you always got to count on Art to just do the 1 or 2 just galaxy brain type play calls where it's like we're throwing a screen to Michael Pruitt for whatever reason. It's just he's always going to have like 1 or 2 of those. But I mean, I thought for the most part, like I said, the play action game was cooking. I thought he did stuff that really fit Russ's skill set extremely well. And even dialing up the play action stuff for Russ outside the numbers, knowing that that's where he really likes to operate. I was impressed. Like I said, I'm excited to see kind of what that marriage kind of looks like as the season progresses. From a defensive standpoint, I thought they got off to a really slow start in the first quarter and a half. Just from a tackling perspective, Steelers came into this one of the best tackling teams in the NFL, but there was multiple like checkdowns to Breece Hall that ended up turning into explosive plays. I know that even from guys that I'm not used to missing a lot of tackles. Deshaun Elliott was fantastic last night, but I think he even missed maybe his first tackle of the season. Landon Roberts missed a tackle on that like 57-yarder. Dante Jackson also missed a tackle on that play. Jackson went out of this one, I think, with a shoulder injury that he's kind of been dealing with for the last couple of weeks. We'll see if he plays next week. But I thought they were kind of beating themselves a little bit just by not tackling well enough in space. The Jets kind of did a lot of the things that I was expecting them to do. Like we talked about in the preview, Rodgers loves the goes, flats, slants. Like that's just what he likes to do. You force him into doing stuff other than that, it doesn't typically look as good. I think that Rodgers, like from a mobility standpoint, like he struggled to move just as much, if not probably more, in my opinion, than Russ did last night as well. They wanted to stay in some 5-man pass protection stuff. They did chip TJ a little bit more than they had chipped other rushers over the course of the season. But I thought Alex Highsmith really won the matchup versus him and Tyron Smith. He didn't end up registering a sack, but I felt like he had multiple quick key pressures. He was so close to getting home. It was definitely nice to have another guy that can win opposite Watt, who had another really quiet game, especially rushing the passer. I think next gen stats just had him at one pressure on the night. But another thing, like the Steelers have done really all season long, you just look at the numbers, man. Like they've been fantastic stopping the run, and it's making teams one-dimensional. And it's allowing them to kind of pin their ears back. They've been getting opposing offenses behind the sticks. You look at last night, 31% rushing success rate for the Jets. That's just not winning football. I thought that they really held their own in the trenches. I thought the defensive line had some really good moments. Keanu Benton had a huge 2-play stretch where he kind of sniffed out a screenplay, knocked that down, and then he also got a PBU at the line of scrimmage, just getting his hands up on a quick throw from Rodgers. And some of the quick game stuff with Rodgers, like that was giving them some issues when the Jets did move the ball. That's typically what it was. But overall, like, I mean, it was a very much like a bend don't break caliber of defense. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Benny Bishop, who had like the game of his life. The first interception was fantastic, just because he's got his hips basically turned towards the sideline. He's able to flip his hips, kind of contort his body, and make a sick one-handed snag. Rodgers against cover two typically does like that up the pole hole shot, and it was a great play from Bishop, man. Like excellent. It was almost like he was trying to bait him into that throw, but not just to get your hand on the football, but to secure a turnover and then set them up in great field position. Like I said, you score 37 points, like more often than not, that's going to come with the addition or with the help of a couple turnovers, and they got some good field position off of those. The second one was more luck than anything else. Rodgers tried a kind of a whole shot to Garrett Wilson. It looked like Wilson kind of took his eyes off of the ball. And then Bishop did a good job, just securing the catch. But I thought that Beanie played really well. There was a couple tackles in space that he made. So definitely like his best game of the entire season to me. I thought Joey had a really good night in coverage. The team, obviously, the Jets, traded for Devontae Adams. They got Garrett Wilson. They got two wide receiver, one caliber players. But Joey was clamping. He had a really nice rep down the sideline on a go ball. Rodgers was trying to hit Garrett Wilson down the left sideline. Joey was with him step for step in phase, nowhere to go with the ball, squeezed him up against the sideline for an incompletion. Thought that he played really well. I think that he lost contain on the early touchdown run, but he did have a really nice tackle and run defense. I think it was in the fourth quarter of that game. Like I said, Deshaun Elliott playing out of his mind. No idea what's gotten into the dude. I've always thought he was a solid pro, but he's playing at like a legitimately all pro level. Like he's been one of the Steelers' best players on either side of the ball. And it's just, you get that type of impact from somebody on that contract. And it's just, it's a massive boost. Not really anything other than that. I thought the Steelers defense, like I said, really did a good job bending, but not breaking, getting some stops, getting some turnovers. That was a really good thing. I thought that they did, I think, mix it up a little bit more on defense yesterday than they had in previous games, which was nice. But, Rodgers, like I said, this is a desperate Jets team. All the narratives were kind of in their favor in this one. And, I thought the Steelers really wore them out and kind of punked them out down the stretch. And that was really encouraging to see. So we'll see what all this looks like moving forward. But I mean, sitting at 5-2, man, I'll be completely honest with you. I didn't have this in the cards. I didn't think that this was going to be where the Steelers were after, the first 7 games of the season. Now they have a massive opportunity next week. Fortunately, another primetime game against the New York Giants on Monday Night Football. But they have the opportunity to go 6-2 into the bye week. The schedule hasn't been very difficult so far, but you play the guys who's in front of you. And also, like we talked about them, even though there was a lot of moving pieces, especially on offense, we talked about the need just to get off to a better start this season, to give them a little bit of wiggle room down the stretch, knowing how difficult the schedule was going to be. They're going to see a lot better quarterbacks, a lot better offenses, things like that. But, they've given themselves that wiggle room just by winning the games they were supposed to win. And I thought, like last night, even though they weren't favored, I thought that they were convincingly the better team. So we'll see what happens. It seems like there's probably going to be some more speculation, some more rumors about, will Pittsburgh potentially trade for a wide receiver, maybe not a wide receiver 2, but add another receiver. There's been a lot of talk about Mike Williams, who played sparingly last night. Maybe that's the guy they go after. He had a visit scheduled with the Steelers in the offseason. He never actually made it to Pittsburgh. The Jets gave him an outlandish contract. But we'll see if that's maybe part of the solution. I still think the Steelers could definitely add another playmaker. I just don't know who's all available. A lot of people tweeting me, DMing me last night about that after the game. And I think the optimism around this team is sky high right now. And I know everybody wants to acquire a wide receiver. I'm just not really sure who's there to be had. But if something breaks, I'll definitely break it down. And if there's anything that you guys want to see in the film room this week, please let me know. I've already had a couple people hit me up about Mason McCormick, so maybe we take a look at what that looks like. I should be getting the film really any time now. I'm gonna take a quick nap and then I'm gonna dive into that. So, as always, I appreciate your all support. Appreciate you guys watching. 5-2, man, it's a pretty good feeling. So, I will check you guys next time. Peace and love.